All right, a little introduction today. So we're in Luke. I've come back. I went with the lectionary text, and that puts us in Luke. And where we're at in Luke, the 70 returned rejoicing. If you remember, Jesus had sent them out, and they had a great time. Really felt used by God in the power of service. And after that, Jesus takes a moment to pray. Fitting his philosophy of using parables, Jesus thanks God that the Lord had hidden things from the wise and intelligent and had revealed them to infants. Jesus is the one who has been given the knowledge of the kingdom. And people really can only learn about that kingdom through Jesus Christ. Jesus then turns to his disciples privately, calling them blessed for what they are witnessing. And that brings us to the passage we have today. It's a familiar one about being a good neighbor. It's the story of the Good Samaritan. But before Jim reads it, I want to talk just a moment about Samaria and the relationship between Samaritans and Jews, who each had opposing views about God. The Samaritans worship God sort of in the old ways, up on a mountain. But the Jews had their temple where they believed that God resided. These two groups did not get along. Prejudice ran deep, and there was even violence at times. That's why Jesus used the Samaritan as the hero is so remarkable. Now, to help you better picture this story, you might want to think of a more current stereotype. For instance, this would be a black man helping a white man, perhaps 40 years ago in the Deep South. It's the good Palestinian helping a Jew today. Or perhaps an Arab, fully dressed in his Muslim attire, helping a Westerner, such as you or I. The story is challenging enough for our faith, but Jesus is always pushing us to enlarge our scope of God. A God who cares for all the earth, even those people. Perhaps especially those people that we don't much care about. Jim?
Gospel of Luke. It's the Message translation, chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. Just then a religious scholar stood up with a question to test Jesus. Teacher, he said, what do I need to get to eternal life? Jesus answered, what's written in God's law? How do you interpret it? The scholar responded, that you love the Lord your God with all your passion and prayer and muscle and intelligence, and you love your neighbor as well as you do yourself. Good answer, Jesus said. Do it and you'll live. Looking for a loophole, the scholar said, but just how would you define neighbor? Jesus answered by telling a story. There once was a man traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, and on the way he was attacked by robbers. They took his clothes and beat him up, and then went off, leaving him half dead. Luckily, a priest was on his way down the same road, and when he saw the man, he angled over to the other side of the road. Not too long after, a Levite, a religious man, showed up. He also avoided the injured man. Then a Samaritan traveling along the road came on. And when he saw the man's condition, his heart went out to him. What they did was give him first aid, disinfecting his wounds, bandaging his wounds. Then he lifted him onto his donkey. And he led him to an inn, made him comfortable. The next morning he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, take care of him. If it costs any more, put it on my tab, and I'll pay you on my way back. Then Jesus said, what do you think? Which of the 3 became the neighbor to the man attacked by the robbers? The one who treated him kindly, the religious scholar responded. Jesus said, go do the same. This is the word of God.
God is still speaking. Thanks be to God.
Beloved God, you know in our hearts that we seek your kingdom. We want to have the kind of life where we really know you. We do our best to live out your word, loving you with all our being, loving our neighbor as well. Help us this day to realize that every single person is worthy of respect, dignity, and compassion. And more than that, empower us to be a good neighbor to all we need, to be available, and to help those in need. Bless the speaking, the hearing, and the living of your holy word. Amen. Go and do the same. And that's what Jesus said at the end, go and do the same. That same care and compassion and neighborly love extended to those in need. That's what we're supposed to be about and do. Let's begin with this religion scholar, a lawyer, as some of the translations use, who wanted to test Jesus, asking, what do I need to do to get eternal life? Now, I have to admit my own suspicions of this guy's integrity and intentions. No offense to the lawyer in the room asking this question. But, Jesus, in his skill, simply turns it back on the scholar. And the guy offers a great answer. Love the Lord with all your heart, all your mind, all your strength, all your soul. That's the way the NRSV says it. Love God with everything that you've got, your whole being. And love your neighbor as yourself. Great words. Words to live by every day of our life. But like any pearl of wisdom, what can be so easily spoken and agreed to is much harder to live by. But we know that Jesus lived those words. Indeed, all of Jesus' ministry is exemplified by those simple words. Words of devotion and surrender and commitment. Words of love and service and sacrifice. Love God, love neighbor. It all boils down to that. But who is this neighbor? Jesus answers with a story, one of compassion, coming from an unlikely source, a Samaritan. The Samaritans were despised by the Jews. They were shunned and marginalized. Yet Jesus shows us that what is often on the margin is where lies the kingdom of God. And so we listen as this Samaritan, this outsider of the faith, exemplifies love and compassion and what it means to be a good neighbor so much better than the other characters in the story. A priest and a Levite. Those were both upstanding, respectable people of their community who were supposedly devoted to God. But in telling the story this way, we see what Jesus thought of such religious pomp and grandstanding. A bunch of hypocrites, and he would often call them that, who seem to have forgotten that following the Lord is about humble service. And that this simple but powerful story teaches us what it means to be a good neighbor and how important it is to take care of those in need without judgment, without fear, with only steadfast love and mercy. And then Jesus turns to us and tells us, go and do the same. Thinking about the last few weeks of my life, I am thankful to all of you for being such a good neighbor to me and my children. People checked on me, they've brought us food, they've sent encouraging cards, and they've shared their love. I felt cared for, and I felt loved. Your actions help communicate the love and presence of our God. I felt it in your hugs and your expressions of support. I felt God's pain echoing my own pain, even in your own tears. And I felt even the hole in my heart filled with the blessing of knowing that Jan was such a blessing to others and that she will always be with me. Thank you for being a good neighbor. And I know that you would offer that same love and or to anyone in this church. It's just who we are. And I give all the thanks and glory to God. Jesus taught us to get involved, to show up, to go and do the same. Those two religious folk who passed by on the other side, they didn't want to be bothered. Maybe they were in a hurry. Maybe they needed to get somewhere. Maybe they were on important business. Maybe they were just too immersed in their own world to notice someone in need. And that's our first clue when we look at the Samaritan. And the first thing really kind of can go over our heads, but really the most amazing thing is that the Samaritan noticed that there was a person in need, that there was a guy hurting and in pain. It's that he was aware. Now think about our own lives. I mean, I know myself a lot of times, I fail to realize when somebody is hurting and pain. They could be in the store, they could be somewhere I meet, anywhere. Or some of the problems of our world and our community. The sad truth is that many of us it's hard for us we just insulate ourselves, and we don't want to face the problems of our world and our community. And let's face it, there's many good Christian people out there who still just don't seem to have gotten it through their hardened hearts that there are people outside our doors who are hurting, who are in need. Refugees who are fleeing horrific violence. Kids who go to bed hungry. People who live with addictions. There's broken relationships. And there's working poor. And there's hurting folks. You see, the first thing as followers of Christ is that we need to become aware of those who are in need. Whether physically or emotionally or spiritually. Because believe me, folks, they're out there. And they're not that far from our doors. The reason I wanted to use the Message translation today is really with the next line in the story. I just love the way it's phrased. When the Samaritan saw the man's condition, his heart went out to him. This wasn't just pity. He wasn't just feeling sorry for the guy. This Samaritan was motivated to act with compassion. And he did so. He went to him, he got involved. He wasn't going to just stand by on the sidelines. He wasn't just going to send a check to the caring place either. He connected with the person in need. He took care of them and bandaged their wounds and cleaned them up. And not only that, the Samaritan gave comprehensive lasting care to help this man fully recover and return to the land of the living. He took care of him. He nursed him back to health. He made sure that he would be okay. He even paid for extended care. You see, it was a holistic approach. The Samaritan did everything that he could to make sure that healing was going to take place, even in the long run. And then Jesus tells us, go and do the same. If we truly want to live, if we want to know and experience the kingdom of God, then we have to be a good neighbor. We have to go and do the same. And as the Gospels teach us, Jesus, he was always going and doing. He was always helping the least of these. He was always reaching out to those on the margin. It was his mission to help the poor, to bring healing and wholeness, to help the world, those that the world seemed to have forgotten. Because we know that the Lord our God never forgets anyone that is bruised or battered or broken. Every single day, it seems like things get worse at our southern border. People die crossing the river. Families are still separated because children, they don't always travel with mom and dad. honest, there's no fix in sight. The camps have separated, they just yell at each other. No fix in sight. But I ask you, my friends, if Jesus was on the border, what would he do? I don't know about you, but I probably hear him telling the same exact story that he told us today about a Samaritan that helped a person in need, and then turning to us and saying to us, go and do the same. In the end, we know whether it's on the border or somewhere else, we are simply messengers of grace. God asks us to be ambassadors of Jesus Christ. We are to offer aid and comfort. And who knows, even in that act of compassion, we may spark a fire in a person's soul so that they experience life, the life-giving, life-changing Spirit of our living God. The truth is, the more that you surrender to God, the more that you take part in this neighborly love, the more you will know God in your life. When you look to Jesus as the example to follow, when you discover the passion in your soul for helping others in whatever way that is, when you serve and share and give back, then you will experience a faith that saves. You'll know that trust and that peace and that fire in your belly that empowers you. That joy that makes you dance. It's about service, my friends. It's about losing your life, surrendering it to God, and thus finding it. Albert Schweitzer once said, I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who have sought and found a way to serve. And then thinking of Francis of Assisi, many know that name. He was the guy that started the group of priests known as Franciscans, a group of Catholic monks dedicated to service and caring for their fellow human beings. You probably don't know how he got started, though. Francis, in his younger years, actually was a man of considerable station. He was wealthy. He was well-spirited, high-spirited. And even with his title and his money, he admits that he was a miserable man. He didn't find purpose in his life, no joy. His life was incomplete. And he was forever striving for something, chasing after one thing after the next. But it never seemed to satisfy. And then one day he was out riding and he met a leper alongside the road. And we don't run into lepers today, but back then, if you know anything of the disease, it's repulsive. It's loathsome. And yet something moved Francis to dismount his horse. He went over to the man, and Francis flung his arms around this leper and hugged him. Gave him comfort, aid, and love. It was in that blessed moment as he was hugging this leper that something remarkable happened. The face of the leper began to change and morph. And when Francis looked up into his eyes, he saw the face of none other than Jesus the Christ. If we cannot see the face of Jesus Christ in our brother and sister, then our lives are in the dark, my friends. And the other thing about that story with Francis, you can't look and see the face of Jesus Christ without it changing you. You can't see that zeal, that compassion, that love, and not realize that's what the world needs. You might ask yourself at this moment, is your life feeling incomplete, adrift, or lost? Is there something missing or holding you back? Perhaps Jesus Christ is calling to you right at this moment, telling you, you heard the story, go and do the same. Get involved. Feel the passion of the Spirit. Give and love and serve. Have you seen the face of Christ recently? It is there. Look for it and those you encounter, because God is right there in our lives. And Jesus is asking us to show the world how much that we love Him. And He stands before each of us telling us, go and do the same. Thanks be to God. Amen.